A dad in shock. Ron Train is the father of police killers Nathaniel and Gareth. Tonight he talks about how his sons went rogue. Ron Train spoke exclusively to Chris Allen.
You don't stop loving your children, Chris. I never stopped loving them and praying for them.
Would you describe them as monsters?
No, I wouldn't describe them as monsters. I'd describe them as two boys that have completely lost their way in life.
He's the retired Baptist pastor reduced to tears by the actions of his sons, Gareth and Nathaniel, who unleashed a hail of gunfire on police, killing 2 young officers and a neighbour.
They've been demonised in the press, and I can understand completely why that's occurred. And I can understand how the police feel.
Do you accept any responsibility for what's happened here?
Absolutely not. I can't. Those decisions were made as adults. I can't accept responsibility for something an adult made.
The first Ron Train knew about the shocking events that unfolded was when police knocked on his door first thing yesterday morning asking for a DNA test to confirm Nathaniel was one of those shot by police in the gunfight which left 6 dead on this isolated bush property.
What was your reaction to what had gone on?
I think shock, Chris. I delayed shock because it wasn't until last night I had a complete meltdown late last night, and I cried out to God. It's because, I'm a believer. I just could not understand how something like this could have occurred with 2 children who'd been raised by my late wife Gwen and myself with certain beliefs, Christian beliefs, but they went down this dark track which we have no understanding of.
Looking at the family album, the boys, who were 2 of 4 children, look like any happy family. But Ron says in their early 20s, Gareth and his younger brother Nathaniel cut all ties with their parents.
We were heartbroken. Gwen and I were both heartbroken. We tried to find the answers within ourselves, whether we were responsible, but we weren't. We had to eventually in the end say that they've made this decision as adults, and we couldn't do a thing about it.
Ron says the 2 brothers were always close, but as a teenager, Gareth became hard to manage.
The only child that was difficult was Gareth. He was very volatile, very controlling. We had troubles with him at school in Brisbane and troubles with him at school here in Toowoomba, which we had to address, so he was difficult to control.
Were they interested or obsessed with guns?
Yes, Gareth in particular was obsessed with guns and weapons. Nathaniel to a lesser degree, but he used to go shooting with Gareth. When they were, out of Monto, they used to go shooting for roos and rabbits and hares and things. Gareth was the one who was obsessed with guns.
And obviously was licensed to have firearms now.
Yeah, which I was a little surprised by when they said they had his fingerprints on record, that he was licensed to have guns, yeah.
In a bizarre twist, Nathaniel Train first married Stacey Christoffel. Ron says the couple had 2 children, Aidan and Madeline, who are also estranged from the rest of the family. Then somehow Stacey ended up with Gareth and was also involved in the shootout and killed by police.
I married them. I married them here in Toowoomba, at the Baptist church here in Toowoomba, yeah.
Did you know that Stacey had gone on then to marry Gareth?
No, absolutely no idea.
The newspapers have speculated that this was some kind of love triangle, but what's your reaction to that?
Well, I think my second son, Gareth, was, as I've shared with you, he was on the Asperger's line. Very difficult to control, very overpowering. And I just think in the end that he took over that relationship that Nathaniel and Stacey had. Because Gareth and Nathaniel are fairly close because they're the 2 brothers next to each other.
Were you aware that Gareth and Stacey were living in the bush?
No.
You had no idea where they were?
No idea.
Ron says he had no idea Gareth had become conspiracy addicted and nursed a hatred of police. And he had no idea Nathaniel, who was reported missing in New South Wales, was living with his brother and his ex-wife.
And apparently, if we read what's correct in the media, there was a whole stack of weapons and ammunition at the property.
You must have been shocked to see what had gone on here, that it appears that there was some kind of ambush, the police believe.
Yes, if we read the information correct through the media, there was some type of ambush and they were supposedly in camouflage gear and all this type of stuff. Yeah, and that seems to me, whether they knew they were coming, I don't know, whether the police were coming. But my heart went out when I found out there were 2 young police constables who'd been murdered. And that's exactly what it was. They were murdered. And I find that really, really difficult to get my mind around.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the families of those police officers who were killed?
I grieve for them deep. I don't know them, but I do grieve for them because I understand the grief they're going through, because I've had loss, not only of my children, but also of my late wife. So I understand what grief is, and I can't imagine what they're thinking at the moment. I mean, and the gentleman that came for some reason just to inspect, to be shot in the back, that is horrific. And there's no excuse for that. No excuse at all. And I don't excuse my boys for their behaviour, their actions at all.
Obviously, you will cop some criticism because you're their dad.
I understand why people would be critical of me. I did read something there about he should have raised his children better. I mean, that's just an ignorant comment because I haven't seen them for 23 years, so I don't know what they've done in that period of time. Yeah. How can I respond to that?
Ron Train says his sons will now have to answer to God for their actions.
So I'll stand before God for what they've done. They can't be brought to justice now in this world, in the secular world, but they will before God. I'll have to say I'm sorry. I need to share that with you.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the people of Australia who have all been shocked by this?
What would I say, Chris? Just seek to be understanding. I'm a father. I know that others have been suffering, but I've lost 2 members of my family. My remaining children are trying to cope with what has occurred, even though they haven't seen the other 2 boys for 23 years. There's 5 families involved now. There's my family, there's Stacey's family, there's the 3 victims, the families of the 3 victims. They're all been shattered by what has occurred. So I would ask for compassion and understanding.